Now, ahead of his appearance before the US Senate later today, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has filed a written testimony apologizing for the missteps in handling data leaks. Zuckerberg has listed out the steps his company is taking to protect its users from the data leaks. Here's what he said, and I quote, "It's clear now that we didn't do enough to prevent these tools from being used for harm. We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. It was my mistake, and I'm sorry," unquote. Now, Zuckerberg says that the company will take steps to strengthen its advertising policy. Now, this includes hiring more people to screen political content. This also includes authorization for each political party that wants to advertise on Facebook. And the company intends to make these changes ahead of the elections next year in India. Now, Democratic Senator Bill Nelson, who had a private one-on-one meeting with Zuckerberg, said that the Facebook founder told him that his company was lied by the political consultancy Cambridge Analytica.
I clearly explained to him what I thought had happened in the misuse of personal data. Number one, that those 87 million, which he confirmed, that personal data was sent into hands that he said they were lied to by Cambridge Analytica. Well, you can't protect our privacy just on the basis of somebody telling you that they're going to protect it. So does that mean law? Yes. Does that mean regulation? Yes. My sense is that he takes it seriously because he knows that there is going to be a hard look at regulation. If it's not his site, someone else can be misused for people who are trying to do us harm. And I believe he understands that regulation could be right around the corner.
Now, Zuckerberg is expected to be grilled for 2 days by US lawmakers. The Facebook CEO is expected to be questioned on how did it allow developers to use user data. Correspondent Kevin McAleese from Washington, D.C. Now, Kevin, a very crucial day today, and if I may say so, a very crucial day in the history of Facebook after weeks since the data scandal news broke out. Today is the day when Mark Zuckerberg gets a chance to testify himself before the Judiciary and Commerce Committees. What do you have to say about that? What can we expect?
Yeah, it's a very big day for the young 33-year-old multi-billionaire founder of Facebook. He's found himself in Washington, something he's tried to avoid in the past. He's always sent his surrogates to give testimony before now. But clearly what happened with Cambridge Analytica was a tipping point for Mark Zuckerberg. He's ditched the trademark grey T-shirt and hoodie. He was wearing a very smart suit today as he walked through Capitol Hill, where he met lawmakers ahead of what we're going to hear today in that official testimony. But it's a major challenge for him. There'll be a lot of questions. Lawmakers have a lot of questions, a lot of issues to tackle. And Mark Zuckerberg himself had released a testimony ahead of time when he said, you know, I want to make sure that the users of Facebook, some 2 billion, can be reassured that their data is protected, but also that, you know, democratic values aren't undermined.
Yes, that's true. Democratic values are undermined. And in light of growing concerns and questions about data privacy, to what extent do you think is Zuckerberg going to hold his ground today, since we've seen a transition in Zuckerberg's stance on the data scandal from initial days since the scandal to now?
Yeah, I think what we're going to hear from Zuckerberg is an apology. He's going to be quite contrite. First and foremost, he wants people to know this is on him. He doesn't want to portion blame. It's entirely his fault. And I think that's going to play well with lawmakers who are obviously keen to see just how well he performs under testimony, because if he does a poor job of it, then it brings into focus this question over whether or not these data breaches, these misinformation trolls that sort of plagued the election process here in the United States need to be regulated. You know, and that's not something that's happened. Effectively, what's been a private firm run by Mark Zuckerberg. So there's a great deal at stake. He's said already he's taking certain measures. He's promising to invest in security. He's going to up security staff from 15,000 to 20,000. He'll investigate, he said, every single app that has access to user data. He said he will expects to be pressed on the impact of fake news stories in the last US election, and of course propaganda material finding its way onto the social media platform in general. So he's got a lot of ground to cover, and a lot of people who have been affected, and a lot of questions here in the United States and worldwide about privacy in general, and where this debate is going. Is Mark Zuckerberg in the United States going to head towards a more European style of privacy regulation? And, you know, the signs are that, yeah, that's probably the direction they're going to head in.
And yes, I mean, it's right that, as you said, that he is trying to appear more forthcoming, especially, a day ago, he threw the floor open to the reporters for questions wherein he reveals that Cambridge Analytica might have harvested data of up to 87 million users. So we see him sort of coming to address and probably make redressal actions in coming future.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, while he makes these changes, while he addresses things like privacy settings, and while he tries to tighten his company's understanding of exactly who is using the platform and whether or not they have nefarious activities in mind, or whether they're just genuine users trying to connect with family or friends, which was the original idea behind the model, which is now sprawled out into a multi-billion-dollar business and boasts, 2 billion users a month. He's now running a company which has a great deal of power, can have a bearing on society in general, can certainly play into shifts in elections and democracies, so is a great deal at stake. This young man, still relatively young man in his early 30s, going to be sat down there in front of US lawmakers, and he will be grilled, because this is the first opportunity that they have had to pick him apart, to really get into the weeds, if they can understand, the weeds of this story, and ask him questions about Cambridge Analytica. How was that allowed to happen? Why weren't the security settings already in place, the guards against this kind of infiltration of that social media? What is he going to do in the future to protect people against that? All of these questions are going to be there, and simmering underneath will be that question of whether there needs to be a greater form of regulation, whether we need to start talking about laws rather than just leaning on Mark Zuckerberg to take on board what has happened and make those corrections to better the service himself.